Today, we're diving into the complicated history of immigration in the United States. It's a topic that's both fascinating and deeply impactful.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one. So, where does the story of American immigration actually begin?
Well, it all starts back in the 1600s with the first European settlers arriving in Jamestown and Plymouth.
Right.
They were seeking new opportunities and religious freedom. But we often overlook that, alongside them, indentured servants and enslaved Africans were brought over to work in the colonies.
That's a crucial point. The enslaved Africans' experience really set the stage for future immigration policies, didn't it?
Exactly. The Atlantic slave trade, which lasted until 1808, forcibly brought millions of Africans to the US.
Yeah.
It's a dark chapter that profoundly shaped the nation's development and created deep-rooted racial and class divides.
And then the Naturalization Act of 1790 only allowed free white men to become citizens, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
It set a precedent that citizenship was tied to race and status, influencing future immigration policies.
It's interesting how early immigration both built the country and sowed seeds of inequality.
That's a great way to put it. Moving into the 19th century, we see the great wave of immigration from the 1820s to the 1880s. Millions of Irish, German, and Scandinavian immigrants arrived. They fueled economic growth, but faced significant discrimination, especially the Irish who dealt with anti-Catholic sentiment.
And Chinese immigrants, too. They contributed to building the railroads but faced racism and exclusion.
Absolutely. The irony is that while immigrants were essential for expansion and industrialization, they were often marginalized. This period highlights the recurring tension between welcoming newcomers and resisting change.
Then came the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, the first major federal immigration restriction, correct?
Exactly. It banned Chinese labor immigration entirely.
Right.
This was a significant turning point, marking the start of institutionalized anti-immigrant policies and establishing federal control over immigration.
It's striking how quickly the open-door policy shifted towards restriction. Do you think these policies were driven more by economic concerns or racial prejudices?
Well, it's a combination of both. Economic fears about job competition were prevalent,
Yeah.
but racial prejudices played a significant role in shaping these exclusionary laws.
That's unfortunate but not surprising given the era. Moving into the 20th century, how did immigration evolve?
From 1892 to 1924, over 12 million immigrants passed through Ellis Island, many from southern and eastern Europe. They brought diverse cultures, but faced nativist backlash from those who considered them un-American.
Despite that, they contributed immensely to the industrial boom, didn't they?
Absolutely. They provided the labor force that powered factories and urban growth. Yet, they were often relegated to low-paying jobs and faced ethnic discrimination and segregation.
Then the Immigration Acts of the 1920s imposed strict quotas. That seems like a significant step back in terms of openness. But wasn't there also a need to control the rapid influx of immigrants at that time?
You raise a valid point. There were concerns about assimilation and economic competition.
Yeah.
However, the quotas were largely based on discriminatory beliefs rather than objective needs. They severely limited immigration from certain regions and entirely banned Asian immigrants.
So the policies were more racially motivated than economically justified.
Exactly. The quotas reduced diversity and reflected deep-seated prejudices. Economic struggles like the Great Depression further intensified anti-immigrant sentiments, leading to actions like the Mexican repatriation, where hundreds of thousands were deported.
That's a troubling part of history. It's important to acknowledge how economic downturns often amplify xenophobia.
Absolutely. Post-World War II, there were some changes. The Bracero program allowed Mexican guest workers to support agriculture. The McCarran-Walter Act ended Asian immigration bans, but maintained strict quotas.
Progress, but still far from equitable. Then the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 brought significant reform, right?
Yes. It abolished the discriminatory quotas and introduced the modern family-based immigration system.
Right.
It opened doors to immigrants from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, reshaping the nation's demographic landscape.
That must have had a profound impact on America's cultural fabric.
It certainly did. It helped the US embrace multiculturalism and diversity. But it also led to new concerns over undocumented immigration and sparked political resistance to more open policies.
It's like every solution introduces new complexities. Do you think the 1965 Act fully addressed the issues it intended to solve?
Well, it's complicated. While it was a significant step forward in eliminating overt racial biases,
Right.
it didn't anticipate the rise in undocumented immigration or fully address the demand for labor in certain sectors.
That makes sense. So, moving into the 1980s, how did the immigration landscape change?
The 1980s saw a rise in illegal immigration. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 provided amnesty to about 3 million undocumented immigrants and made it illegal to knowingly hire them. It aimed to curb illegal immigration, but had mixed results.
Did it manage to significantly reduce undocumented immigration?
Unfortunately, it didn't. While it legalized many and strengthened enforcement, it didn't address the root causes like economic disparities and the demand for labor. Deportations and family separations increased as a result.
So the challenges persisted into the new millennium.
Exactly. After 9/11, immigration policies tightened with a focus on national security. The USA Patriot Act increased screenings, and programs like DACA in 2012 offered protections to undocumented immigrants brought here as children. Yet, these measures have been contentious.
The debate over DACA illustrates how divided opinions are on immigration reform.
Definitely. The Trump administration's policies, like the travel ban and attempts to end DACA, intensified the debate.
Yeah.
While the Biden administration has taken steps to reverse some policies, challenges like record border crossings remain.
It's evident that immigration remains one of the most polarizing issues in U.S. politics.
Absolutely. Looking ahead, questions arise. Should there be a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants? How can the U.S. balance border security with humanitarian concerns for asylum seekers?
And with global issues like climate change influencing migration, the stakes are even higher.
Exactly. It's not just about national policy, but global responsibility. Finding a balance between welcoming immigrants and maintaining security is one of the biggest challenges we face.
It really highlights the need for comprehensive and compassionate immigration reform.
Couldn't agree more. Understanding our history is key to shaping effective policies.
Yeah.
We've seen the consequences of both open and restrictive policies throughout our past.
This conversation has been really illuminating. Thanks for shedding light on such a complex topic.
Thank you. It's been great discussing this with you. Hopefully, our listeners gained some valuable insights into the intricate history of U.S. immigration.
I'm sure they did. Looking forward to our next deep dive.
Me too. And thanks to everyone for joining us on this journey through America's immigration story.
Until next time, take care.